The year was 1824, and America stood at a crossroads so quiet, so subtle, that most living in the young republic could not sense its weight. The country was no longer the fragile experiment born from revolutionary fire, yet it was not the mighty nation it believed itself destined to become. It hung suspended in an uneasy space between the fading echoes of the past and the restless pull of the future. The nation was only 48 years old, but already it felt ancient in some places and startlingly new in others. The founding fathers were dying, their voices thinning like smoke. The generation replacing them did not remember Lexington or Yorktown, nor did they understand the delicate balance the early leaders had fought to preserve. Their dreams were bigger, louder, faster. The republic built on fragile compromise was becoming something bold and unpredictable, shaped not by philosophers, but by ambitious men and ordinary citizens hungry for change. In Washington City, the tension felt alive. Fog from the Potomac crept over the half-paved streets each morning, clinging to columns and rooftops like a ghost reluctant to move on. Carriage wheels clattered across muddy roads, passing between grand government buildings that still smelled faintly of fresh plaster and wet stone. The capital was not yet a city of power and marble. It was a construction site of ideals, ambition, and political gamesmanship. The older generation, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, carried the weight of a fragile, idealistic America. They believed in balance, gentlemanly debate, and cautious unity. The newer generation, Clay, Adams, Calhoun, and most of all, the fiery Andrew Jackson, believed in expansion, industry, more democracy, and more conflict. To them, the revolution was a starting point, not a guiding scripture. Caught between these worlds were millions of ordinary Americans, farmers who remembered when the Union was a dream, factory workers riding the wave of industrialization, enslaved people whose hopes rose and fell with every political whisper, native nations struggling against waves of expansion, Western settlers carving a new destiny out of untouched forests and unfamiliar plains. Each group wanted something different. Each feared someone else's version of America. On a cool March morning at Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's trembling hands unfolded a letter from his old friend and rival, John Adams. Their rivalry had faded with age. Now they were two old men, watching the country they shaped transform faster than they could comprehend. Adams wrote with his usual bluntness, confessing his fear that the America they built was not the America rising before them. Jefferson's eyes softened as he read the final line. Are we watching a nation grow, or watching it split? Jefferson walked to his window, staring out at the Virginia hills. Even in their beauty, he felt the tremor of inevitable change. America, he whispered to the empty room, what will you become? Washington, meanwhile, vibrated with new energy. In the House, Henry Clay stood over maps of canals, roads, and expanding territories. His fingers traced lines that did not yet exist, highways linking distant cities, railways cutting through mountains, trade routes reshaping commerce. Clay, charming and ambitious, believed that America could not survive without modern infrastructure. Gentlemen, he declared to a group of skeptical congressmen, a nation is either growing or dying, and we must grow. Across the city, John Quincy Adams wrestled with his own burdens. Brilliant but cold, disciplined but awkward, Adams understood the nation's future more clearly than most, but he also felt its danger. Each night he wrote in his journal, pouring out the anxieties he could not show. The Union grows, but grows twisted, pulled by competing winds. I fear what will snap first, our unity or our spirit. And then there was Andrew Jackson. General Jackson was unlike anyone America had ever seen. A warrior, a hero, a force of nature. He walked into Washington like a lightning storm, electrifying the common people and frightening the political elite. He did not speak like Adams or Clay. He spoke like the people, direct, emotional, sometimes furious. Crowds followed him, cheering his name. Taverns erupted when he entered. He was the future embodied in a single man, loud, democratic, uncontrolled. One night in Georgetown, he spoke before a packed gathering. America does not belong to the rich families of Boston or the old dynasties of Virginia. It belongs to the people. The crowd roared. His enemies shivered. Beyond Washington, the country itself was transforming. In New England, factory bells rang from dawn to dusk. Young women worked 12-hour shifts in textile mills, their hands stained with dye and their futures uncertain. Men toiled in ironworks and machine shops. The age of industry had arrived, drowning out the quiet rhythm of rural life. In the South, cotton ruled everything. The plantations grew larger, slavery grew stronger. Southern elites feared the growing power of northern banks, tariffs, and abolitionist whispers. They began to see Washington not as a center of unity, but as a threat. In the West, settlers pushed beyond old borders. They built cabins, cleared forests, fought animals, braved winters, and dreamed of land ownership and freedom. The frontier was a place of hope and danger, lawless, raw, and shaped only by will and survival. Every region saw the future differently. Every region feared losing control. President James Monroe, dignified and gentle, tried desperately to hold everything together, but even he saw the change. During cabinet meetings, he often fell silent, staring at the large wall map of the United States. "It is strange," he once murmured to Henry Clay, "to lead a nation changing faster than its leaders can understand." Clay tried to comfort him, but Monroe knew the truth. The rhythm of America was no longer steady. It was breaking. The turning point came with the presidential election of 1824. 4 candidates from one party, each representing a different vision of America. Adams, the intellectual; Clay, the negotiator; Crawford, the conservative; Jackson, the warrior. The votes split. No one won a majority, and the decision fell to the House. Jackson won the popular vote, but Clay held the power in Congress. In a move that stunned the nation, Clay supported Adams, giving him the presidency. Adams rewarded Clay with the position of Secretary of State. It looked like a deal. It smelled like a deal. To Jackson's supporters, it was betrayal. To Adams' supporters, it was necessity. To the nation, it was proof that America was changing into something unpredictable. In the West, fury erupted. "How can a man win and still lose?" farmers asked. "Because Washington is rotten," others said. A Meteran in Kentucky muttered, "Maybe the country should choose sides." Inside the White House, Adams felt only loneliness. His victory was hollow. The people doubted him. Jackson's fury hung over him like a storm cloud. Adams walked through the quiet hallways and realized he was not a president chosen by the people. He was a symbol of a fading era. The country grew more divided. Banks clashed with farmers, factories with plantations, states' rights with federal power, East with West, elites with commoners. Every conflict was a symptom of something deeper, a nation in transition. When Jefferson and Adams both died on July 4th, 1826, 50 years after the Declaration of Independence, it felt symbolic. The past had died, and the future rushed in to fill the void. By the 1820s and 1830s, the new America arrived in full force. Jackson returned, leading an army of voters behind him. He won the presidency in a landslide. The old order collapsed. Jackson changed everything. Political parties, presidential power, national identity. America became louder, more democratic, more violent, more expansive. But even as it moved forward, the ghosts of the past, slavery, indigenous removal, economic inequality, clung tightly to its ankles. Change brought power, but it also brought danger. The 1820s and 1830s became a strange, uneasy era. Historians would later call it the American Transition, a moment where the country hovered between what it had been and what it would soon become. Ordinary citizens lived through it without understanding its magnitude, but those who listened closely felt something beneath the surface, a quiet, insistent ticking, like the wind before a hurricane. By the 1840s, a new America had emerged, bigger, more confident, more divided, more unstoppable. The noble experiment Jefferson and Madison built was gone, replaced by something vaster and fiercer.